between the baby boomers and what's happening with the millennials, and stark differences between how they view housing and what they're seeking and what they will be seeking is very different. And if you're not adjusting your marketing for that, you're going to see a diminishing return for that. I think that the days of just kind of, I don't know, just trying to show people what you want them to see are long gone. I think the transparency and the working in a collaborative manner with both sellers and buyers is probably the new era. Whereas before, these sales techniques that people would use were a little bit more in that high pressure. The millennials hate. You can still do it with the baby boomers, but the millennials cannot. They smell a shark and they just run. And there is a whole different mindset to deal with them. But if you look at that population, it's bigger than the baby boomers. We have a slight lull, but if you look at them, there's the ages of, let's say, 19 to 27 is one of the largest percentages of that generation. And most people buy homes between 29 to, let's say, 34. And if you look at that, they're just starting to come of age. And, there's a big renter population. The rental pool is it's crazy right now. It's super, super high. I mean, it makes so much more sense to buy today than it is to rent, because that millennial pool is so huge. So if you look at what happened, that generation entered the rental pool first, and the rental market exploded. The next step is they now start to figure if the average is between, and I'm going to just go on the higher end of that 19 to 27 range, but let's say there's, for the sector that is 25 to 27, they're right now starting to take a 4-year cycle before they start to, before they marry, is the average. And this is just the numbers, right? So if they're now dating, or in the midst of dating, they're 3 to 4 years away from getting married, and when they marry, they're now pooling assets. And instead of having this, in LA for certain regions, you've got to earn $109,000 a year to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. They're now 2-income families, which is now the norm, versus the baby boomer generation that was largely traditionally when they were first buying homes was a 1-income earning family. So now you've got 2-income earners. That a large percentage of are college educated, and their earning capabilities are higher. You have personal spending at an all-time high, or availability of funds. You have corporate profit also at an all-time high. You have inflation that is, although I'm going to still say modest, has the potential to grow slightly, and as does the incomes that will grow with it. And if everyone knows, I mean, during an inflationary period, whereas during a downturn, cash is king, in an inflationary period, the assets are king, because your cash will deflate or devalue, I should say. And so the potential for another boom, when everyone right now is thinking, hey, we're going to crash because this is the height of the market, and it's crazy how much stuff, how high things are. I remember thinking that same thing in 2001. I remember thinking the same thing, and I'm sure people in the 70s thought the same thing, and the 80s as well, when the market went up and interest rates were 18%. I'm not saying that's where we're headed. I just don't tend to believe the doomsdayers that are also selling seminars on, hey, this is why you should be scared, and buy these funds that that they're pushing. I think that if this is my not that you asked for a prediction, but I think that we'll probably have a little slump for sure, because we're talking about a 4-year before really that starts to kick in. And I think you'll probably have a slowdown, although I think it's going to be mild, like what happened in 2001, 2003. Most people didn't even feel that, and it was a tech bubble that happened, and it affected a certain price point, and but you look at our base, and the low end everywhere is doing really, really pretty well. And you look at the Inland Empire, there's very little inventory. You look at the lower end areas of the blue collar areas, doing super well, very low in inventory. The higher end is in some pockets has a little bit more product that's sitting. And so if you look at it from this standpoint and you look at the demographics that are coming in that are starting to buy properties or will start to buy properties, it only puts more pressure on that low end because they don't start off going and buying high-end homes for the most part. They start off like everyone else. But now you've got 2-income earning families. And at the point they start, on their way to their 1.8 kids, it is going to be another boom. Believe it. Fannie Mae knows it. Freddie Mac knows it. I mean, it's what they talk about every time you go and talk to them. They're like, oh yeah, we're not worried about a downturn. This is the demographic. We've seen this before. And when you look and start planning your business as a agent, especially if you're a new agent, then you plan your business for what's coming. And I'm not talking about that. You set your goals, I think, in 6-week increments. And you set your daily goals as to what are you going to do today. And, whatever you have to accomplish today should coincide with what your goal is for what you want to accomplish in 5 or 6 years. Because this is where you're headed. So you got to take those steps today in order to be there. And you'll see your volume and your business grow as it goes on because you have a vision and you have a goal in mind that you're working towards. It's just like weight loss. People that are working on losing weight, it's not hey, I'm going to lose this much weight in 30 days and wait 30 days to start it. The decision is, okay, it's right now. I'm hungry right now. Am I going to have, an Oreo cookie or an apple? And it's those little decisions that, propel you forward, that you don't realize how much they propel you forward. It's, am I going to take the stairs or the elevator? It's the same thing. Am I going to sit there and make this phone call? Or am I going to just talk to my, the people in the cubicle next to me? Am I going to go door knocking? Am I going to go hang the call tags? Or am I going to just sit back because I'm afraid of another no? If you're afraid of another no, then just recognize you're afraid of another no and hire someone who's not. And tell them you're not, and tell them there's nothing to be afraid of so that you don't train them to be afraid of the no. So just grow and recognize what's coming so that you can plan accordingly. The other thing is that you need to get more involved right now because so many changes that are happening from a government level. And I'm not talking about like the federal government. I'm talking more just locally and regionally. And this is part of the work product, right? This is part of like why sometimes I'm out till 2 a.m. because I'm networking with people that are in the know because I can't go to the city council meetings and what have you. But there's a lot of rezoning that's happening right now because they're creating higher density. And when you're doing these investments, buy some of those in that. And I'm not talking about the path of process or progress, like, hey, let's buy out in the outskirts in the desert because eventually there'll be housing here. I'm talking about, let's buy a little house in Hollywood that we know they're eventually going to rezone to R4 because then I can I can develop out units and have paid nothing for the lot. Things like that will propel your retirement or your income and your stability forward. And so if you have that mindset that it's not about today and get out of that survival mode mindset and get into the wealth building mindset, then you'll just see everything in a different light. One of the things I learned this week, and I'll just share this really quick because I know I'm just doing all the talking here, but that I took away from the seminar that I was just at was, the shift in housing and just in housing is not necessarily going to come from just higher density. It's going to come in from what your housing can do for the owner. And so just think about this for a second, is if we think, and this is, there was a lady, Tony, I forget her last name, I think it was Moss, but she said this and it just really struck a chord with me was, well, everyone's gearing towards housing and I'm on this kick right now to create more kind of, I'll call it socially advantageous housing. So where people are more social with each other versus just technology and thinking that being on Facebook or Instagram is me interacting with other people, because it's not. I think that her step and what she thought about was, how can housing help me earn money? And how can I create the house that is going to help someone else profit in this new environment? Because traffic, it sucks. And so if you're not working locally and you live in an area that doesn't have all the high paying jobs, you're either stuck to low paying jobs or you're going to have to telecommute at some point in the future. And so these homes need to have those attributes to them starting now to perpetuate that in the future. And if you sell that and incorporate that into the model and explain that, then you're ahead of the curve already. And you'll get known for that one more thing that people will then seek you out and they'll help you create other opportunity. So I need some water. Yeah, I'm about to put it on the group here. Let's see. That way they've got that. That show up?
Yep. Texting you is best, 310-345-2496. Or
no, 2696.
2696. Sorry, there was something on my screen. I'm outside. Robert at remodeledhome.com.
At a remodeled home.
A remodeled home. Good job. See what happens?
All right. And I'll put, I thought they took it down because they had that the revenue that was coming from real estate agents that was marketing on Google was too great and that they took it down. In fact, I think I said that somewhere at some point. I was wrong because I later spoke with a friend who was actually ran Google Analytics, and he goes, no, it's just wrong time. So just know this: Google's going to get in, Yelp is going to get in, Amazon is going to get in, and just like the travel agents that were around before Travelocity, and they're now a Chinese or Mexican restaurant where the travel agency used to be, that's going to happen to a lot of real estate companies, if they don't adapt, if they don't figure out. And I'm not saying you have to join them. I'm just saying that you have to create
you have to work around. I've been saying this on webinars lately, Robert. I mean, if you look at 88% of buyers and sellers going online for a real estate transaction in any way, shape, or form, 88%. Okay. And now you can't, and I'll say this to every agent who's listening to this or the replay or whatever, understand you're not going to be able to compete for CPC rate, which is cost per click. You're talking in the $40 per click range for Google, and just to have specialized click rates to go after the volume they're going after. So if you eliminate that and understand that all the agents are now going to flounder around desperately, right? You still have 1.5 million real estate agents, another 1 million plus mom and pop investors, and they're all door knocking, cold calling, and mailing. You're looking at a slammed market, especially with inventory being down. Why working defaulted property? Like, this is my pitch for all of you who have the monster already. The pitch is this. Remember, a defaulted homeowner is not answering the door. They're not answering the mail. They're not going online. They're such a unique niche. They don't want to talk to realtors. They don't want, they really just want good advice, and they want somebody they can trust at the end of the day. I mean, it's just such a weird little unique niche of door knocking, cold calling, and mailers have no effect on defaulted homeowners. They're not affected by what's happening online. That if you work this one niche as your bread and butter backbone, one, you can work with investors like Robert. But number two, it can be a mainstay to your business. Does that sound, based on what you're seeing, Robert? I mean, it would just make logical sense from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, I think you said two things here that I'm going to just expand on for you. The trust, that they're looking for someone that they can trust, is huge.
Yep. Likability and trust are through the roof.
It's here. Just look, if for the people that are out there, if you've ever been in any type of economic situation that was not good, or then you're looking for someone to trust. And the problem is that if you've got agents who don't show everything and you're not completely transparent, you blow your own credibility. And it goes back to what I think we started off the call with, which was, I mean, at the point you're in front of someone, it's your sale to lose. I think you should assume the close and listen to what they're looking for and be the expert that you are and just answer.